We're coming off a wild week of fantasy football again, and I don't know if y'all know this, but we are now officially entering the second half of the regular season of 2023 fantasy football. And here's the thing about making fantasy football trades halfway through the fantasy football season. It's really hard to trick anybody in your league about a specific player's value this late in the season. The way you make the best trades at this point in your season is to be very meticulous about who you involve and what you're getting and what you're sending away in these particular trades you're trying to go after. So today we're walking through 5 buy low trade targets before week 8 fantasy football. And instead of just giving you the trade targets, I'm going to walk you through these guys. We're going to discuss their value in fantasy football, and I'm going to walk through a list of trades that I would do for these players. And of course, guys, I've got on my FFN hat here, and I'm giving away more hats today. So go down there. The way you qualify for a free hat is go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment on this video, and you will have a chance to be randomly selected for this hat. Let's go ahead and just get right into these trade targets. The first guy on the list right here was on here last week. It's the second week on this list, and it's Jackson Smith-Njigba of the Seattle Seahawks right here. Now, here's the thing about this one. He's coming off his best game as a pro, right? So, he was really good against Arizona, and he finally found the end zone, and he gave you 14 if you were in half PPR, and more than that if you're in a full PPR league. Jackson Smith-Njigba was no slouch at all in week 7. So it probably feels like this isn't even a buy low situation for Jackson Smith-Njigba. I can understand that right here. But here's the thing. This guy is just getting started. For those of you who have been with me for the entire offseason and now leading into the season, you know that I've been big on Jackson Smith-Njigba literally from day one. From day one, I've been always in on him, telling you guys to draft him, telling you guys to trade for him, because now is his time. He's just now getting started. We're looking at a true second half breakout, league winning type of player here with Jackson Smith-Njigba. As you can see, the numbers on the screen here, nothing impressive. Those numbers don't tell the full story. He finally started getting more downfield targets in week 6 against the Cincinnati Bengals, and it translated to that on week 7 versus the Arizona Cardinals. Now, DK Metcalf didn't play, so maybe that has something to do with it, and I think it does. But at the end of the day, Jackson Smith-Njigba, I don't care if DK Metcalf is there or not, he's gonna get more work, because Tyler Lockett, even without DK Metcalf, he was a bum in fantasy football in week 7. Jackson Smith-Njigba is here to stay. I'm telling you guys this right now. Here's the trade that I would do for Jackson Smith-Njigba. If you could do a type of trade where you could get rid of a wide receiver 3, someone in the range of Drake London, who is the wide receiver 34 as of this filming on Sunday night. If you could package him together with a higher end, mid-end RB2, Alvin Kamara is a great option. And Alvin Kamara, is the RB17 on the season, but he's obviously been very good in fantasy football. This is a situation where I would take a guy like Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver 91 in fantasy through the first 6 weeks, and get a guy like Isaiah Pacheco as well at the running back position, who's the running back 14, coming off a game where he was okay, really got his week saved by that touchdown at the end. This is the type of deal I would move, because you're getting an upgraded wide receiver. It may not sound like it, right? Drake London is a wide receiver 3 in fantasy football, and Jackson Smith-Njigba had one good game finally. That's exactly why this is a buy low situation. Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to continue to get better. And the good thing about him versus Drake London specifically is Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to have a more stable target share moving forward, because his offense allows that. Geno Smith, on average, throws way more pass attempts per game than Desmond Ridder does. This is a move I'm trying to make still heading into week 8 fantasy football, and I advise my audience to do the same. The next guy up here, this one feels a little bit weird, honestly, because I've got concerns about this guy. I've got Christian Watson of the Green Bay Packers here as a good buy low trade target. As I just said, I'm concerned. I've got concerns about this one. First of all, Jordan Love is not good. We've gotten to the point of the NFL season where we've seen enough of Jordan Love. He was good the first couple games. You know why? Because nobody had any film on the guy. Well, now we're several weeks deep into the season. Every team's got film on this guy, and he's just simply not a very good player. That's the first concern. Second concern, his workload is just not enough. And not only is it not enough, it's just not stable right now. You can't keep track of what Christian Watson is doing on a volume basis week to week. It's different every week. And the other reason I'm concerned is because there is a possible injury looming into this week with Christian Watson that we will have to keep an eye on. So make sure you stay tuned to the channel. We'll be giving updates throughout the week on Christian Watson specifically. So I'm going to say this, he is not the perfect trade candidate right now. There's nothing perfect about him. This one has to be a true buy low, because the one thing I cling to with Christian Watson specifically is that big playability that he showed us at the end of last season. We know it's there. We know Christian Watson can pop off for 3 touchdowns and 100 yards. And we know he can take rushes as well. Christian Watson's a very high upside player. And the other piece to this is that Matt LaFleur, the offensive coach on that team, head coach obviously, but he's an offensive-minded guy. He was able to do that with him last year. Now, obviously, way different quarterback. It's a way different situation these days in Green Bay. I believe that Matt LaFleur will figure it out and get a way to get the ball in one of his best playmakers' hands. So here's something I would do. If you've got Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver 38 through the first 6 weeks of fantasy football, I would do that for Christian Watson straight up. I would make that trade straight up because, again, Christian Watson, like, coming into this game, it's not like he's popped off already and he just had a down game. He's had a several string of disappointing games, and he's obviously missed time with an injury. This is something that's very doable. Terry McLaurin has played every game this season, and he's also had big games. So people will look at that and say, I'll get a guy who's way more stable. What they don't realize is that Christian Watson's upside is way higher than Terry McLaurin's. I would do that kind of deal straight up. If you've got an excess of running backs and someone needs a running back who's got Christian Watson, I would do Alexander Madison, the running back 19, for Christian Watson straight up. Those are the type of deals I would do, because what you're doing there is you're getting rid of 2 guys who are basically pretty low upside, but more consistent and more steady than Christian Watson is. That's the ultimate reality here of what those guys bring and what Christian Watson doesn't bring. But what Christian Watson brings that those 2 guys don't is a way higher ceiling. This is a ceiling play here, and on this channel, I'm all about telling you guys, telling my audience, that you got to go for ceiling. Christian Watson has the ceiling, and those are the moves I would make for a guy with that kind of ceiling. Devonte Adams is number 3. And honestly, I have concerns about Devonte Adams as well. It's kind of similar to Christian Watson. I've got concerns here. Listen, it's not the player. It has nothing to do with the player. Devonte Adams, if you watch him this year, he's still a great player. The guy's crispy as routes as ever. The guy's still got speed. He can still burn you deep. The guy is still a great wide receiver in the NFL. The wide receiver himself does not concern me. But the team, the quarterback situation, that's what concerns me. The quarterback situation is so unstable. Jimmy Garoppolo, even if he plays, isn't that great. But he can't even stay healthy and stay on the field. So Devonte Adams is forced to work with Brian Hoyer, forced to work with Aiden O'Connell, and if you look at those stats, it has not worked out well for Devonte Adams. Now, of course, looking at the numbers on the screen, you can still see that he's a very viable wide receiver, high-end wide receiver 2 option right now in fantasy football. But also, with this quarterback situation and the team, he's clearly unhappy. He's been spouting off to the media for weeks now. And obviously, he had some comments that went viral last week. Wasn't exactly a great look for Devonte Adams. So there's issues here. There's no doubt about that. So if the way I look at it is, if I'm uneasy as a massive Devonte Adams fan, I know for a fact that there are lots of people who are. And in fact, I'll be honest with you guys, this was my most asked about player on my channel leading into this week. He was the most asked about player. Should I trade him? Should I trade for him? I've got the answer. I'm trading for him, because here's what we know. We know this about him. His target share is still elite. He had 12 targets in week 7. He's not losing importance in this offense. They understand they need to get this guy the ball, regardless of who the quarterback is. Like I said earlier, he's still an elite level player. So if I'm looking at a trade where I can send off a guy like Brandon Ayuk, who has been very good in fantasy and honestly has several great weeks ahead of him because of Deebo Samuel's perceived absence, that will be at least 2 games. If I could take a Brandon Ayuk and package him together with a running back like Joe Mixon, RB20 on the year so far, that's the type of move I would make to get a Devonte Adams, the wide receiver 11. and a downgrade at running back, potentially, with Ramondre Stevenson. Because I know at the end of the day, Devonte Adams' importance is still going to be way more consistent than Brandon Ayuk's week to week. He's got the same ceiling as Brandon Ayuk and even higher in a lot of weeks. So to me, this is a move I would try to make. You're not going to get extraordinarily low value for Devonte Adams because he has the name value, but based on his performance, based on his unhappiness level, and based on the quarterback situation, you can absolutely buy low on Devonte Adams right now as we speak. Number 4. Man, this one, this is crazy. I've got Bejon Robinson here for the second straight week in fantasy football. First of all, what happened? What happened on Sunday with Bejon Robinson? Honestly, I was not only confused with this on Sunday, but I was actually pretty pissed off about this situation. Because here's the reality, like, Bejon Robinson was a top 10 pick. So when I look up and I see that Bejon Robinson carried the ball one time, in a close win against the Buccaneers, I was furious. So I was doing research, obviously. If you have not heard, what the reality was with this situation was that apparently Bejon Robinson was dealing with headaches the night before on Saturday night, and he was hoping to come back in the game, wake up the next morning, and feel better. It didn't go away. He was having issues, and he was trying to push through it, but he realized, I'm just not going to do it. He told Coach Arthur Smith, and Arthur Smith decided, we're not going to do it either. We're just going to go with Tyler Algier. We're going to go with Cordarrelle Patterson today. That's what they decided to do. So I'm still a little bit confused because there really wasn't much of an update post-game. We're supposed to get an update on Monday, so by the time you're watching this, you may see an update. But that's my only concern. That's my only concern right here. Because here's the reality with Bejon Robinson. This guy's upside is just simply too high for me not to take a shot right now on him. And listen, you can see the numbers on the screen. They haven't been super impressive. And that's the other thing. It's not like this is his first bad game. In fact, coming into this week, he was coming off of 2 bad games previously. So he has been disappointing the past several weeks. But you can see that he's still a very efficient running back. Bejon Robinson has been very efficient. It's a very similar situation to Jahmyr Gibbs right now. People are getting impatient with Bejon Robinson. But you know what? Jahmyr Gibbs, I called him a buy low trade target weeks ago. And of course, he popped off on Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens. That's because he's a great talent. The same applies to Bejon Robinson. But here's the problem. He was a first-round pick in everybody's draft. So the chances that you're going to get a super great value on him, they're not very high. Not many people are going to give you some extraordinary value for him. But this is a rare time to take a shot and have a real shot to get way better value than you would have last week or 2 weeks ago. I would do this type of trade. When I'm looking at Alvin Kamara, who I've mentioned already in this video, running back 17, package him together with Garrett Wilson, who's had a couple of good games that he's strung together. Trade for Bejon Robinson, the running back 10 right now. Possibly get an Ayuk. Maybe you could get a Brandon Ayuk thrown in there. That's the type of deal I would do. Or if you just wanted to do a straight up trade and that one doesn't work, I would go for a Derrick Henry or a Josh Jacobs. Trade him straight up for Bejon. People are impatient on Bejon Robinson right now, and people are pissed. Believe me, I had Bejon Robinson in one of my redraft leagues, and I was not happy, and I was tempted to sell him off for something, but I realized people are waiting for this type of behavior. So go act on somebody in your league who's got Bejon Robinson, and he cost them their game on Sunday. Those are the people that will be willing to make moves to get Bejon Robinson off their team for better perceived value. The last guy on the list right here, I've got a quarterback right here that I got to be honest with you. It's Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert of the Los Angeles Chargers. I just need to say this right out of the gate with Justin Herbert. Is there another elite quarterback in the NFL that we all perceive as an elite player who shrinks in more big games than Justin Herbert? Honestly, I'm curious. Because I can understand, like, his coach is not good. Brandon Staley is not a good coach. They have muffed so many games this season already. It's ridiculous. They've done it for years with Brandon Staley, even without him. The Chargers as a franchise have done this for years. So I get it, but Justin Herbert just cannot win the big games. And as a result, fantasy football production has hurt us along the way because the Chargers are in plenty of big games this year. They've already played a lot of primetime games. And this wasn't the first bad game of the year for Justin Herbert. But again, this does not change the upside, very similar to Bejon Robinson. Because for as many games like he did yesterday and the week before against Dallas, he equally does games like he did against the Minnesota Vikings this year, or the Las Vegas Raiders this year, or the Tennessee Titans this year. He's just as capable of giving you 25 to 35 point games in fantasy football. So here's what I would do. If you can get someone who just wants more consistency at the quarterback position, I would take a guy like Brock Purdy, the quarterback 11 heading into week 7. CJ Stroud, quarterback 14. Kirk Cousins, quarterback 8. And I would package them together with a wide receiver 3, high-end wide receiver 3, someone in the range of Courtland Sutton. And I would try to trade for Justin Herbert because, like I said, you could catch someone who just wants to be like, I just want consistency at quarterback. I just want my quarterback to not kill me week to week. Justin Herbert has been doing that. So there are people out there that just want consistency at quarterback, and he's not providing that. Those are the people you can take advantage of. Take a quarterback who's been more consistent this year, package them together with a wide receiver 3 like Courtland Sutton, and this is the type of deal that I would absolutely make for a high upside quarterback who could absolutely go on a tear at any moment. So let me know what you think of the trade candidates in the comments below and what questions you need answered before week 8 fantasy football. And the next video today heading into week 8 fantasy football will be coming up at 2 p.m. Central this afternoon. So make sure to stay tuned and I'll see you there.